Welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where wealth means a lot more than just building a second stream of income. Listen and learn how 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate to create a lifestyle that most people only dream about. A lifestyle that includes good health, family, romance, travel, charity, and all the other parts of a balanced life. Now, here is your host, real estate investor and mentor, Steve Davis.
Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. We are going to be talking about how to run 10, 20 houses in 3 or 6 hours a month and why that is the accurate number. But I wanted to revisit yesterday's show because I obviously went really quickly through a couple of points, especially when dealing with real estate agents. I got an email from a listener who let me know that. So I want to go ahead and start off by answering this email. It's basically this: how are you able to ensure a realtor is a listing agent compared to just someone who browses the MLS? There's really, first off, you have to understand that all agents are listing agents and selling agents. If they list a deal and they sell the deal, one agent is both of those. They're the listing agent and the selling agent, and that's how they get all 6% of the commission. If a listing agent puts their deal onto MLS and another agent sells it, then the listing agent is the listing agent, and then the agent who sells it is the selling agent. So they all have the ability to be both. But there is a group of very aggressive, quality people who bust their rear ends and get listings. Then there's people who don't. They just patrol MLS and look for other people's property for sale. Those people are not useful to you. You could have one patrolling MLS for you, but that would be all you would need. And the thing is, you can go to HAR.com and set up HAR to do everything that realtor would do for you. It even automatically sends you deals that fit your parameters. It's a very powerful tool. But as I've said, great deals generally don't make it to MLS. Great deals are sold out of the pocket. It's called a pocket deal. Now, they used to have 72 hours to do that. They've changed the law. Now they only have 24 hours to do it. From the time they sign the listing agreement, they have to put it on MLS within 24 hours. That means they only have 24 hours to market it to friends, relatives, or investors like yourself. Now, how do you make sure that they're listing agents? You have to be very clear in your initial contact that you don't want them to bring you other people's deals. Now, most of them, probably 90% of them, are going to balk at that. And that's okay. Get rid of them. You don't need them. What you need are 24 hustlers. People who get off their butts, get out of the office, go meet families, and talk them into letting them sell their home. That's a real listing agent. And you need to say it in the script that I teach in my 2-day class. I say it almost 4 times, 3 to 4 times. I'm looking for listing agents. I only deal with listing agents. I need you to be a listing agent. Are you a real listing agent? See how I say it 4 different ways? So you've really got to spend the time and believe it yourself to get it across to them. Because a lot of agents are actually trained to ignore you, and they're going to call you with other people's deals. And it seems hard to do this, but if an agent that you've told not to bring you anything but their listings brings you somebody else's listing, give it back to them. Take them off your list. or give it back to them and say, this is not your listing. Please don't bring me anything but your listing if you still want to deal with that individual. But if you've said it 4 times and they still bring you somebody else's listing, they're ignoring you. They think you're stupid. They think you don't know what you're talking about. Ditch them. Get back on the list. Call some more till you find another one. Because again, I'm teaching my students to have about 24 agents on their team. So, is there any perfect way to make sure that they are listing agents? No, because like I said, some of them are trained to ignore you. Some of them are going to ignore you because they think you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. And they're going to bring you deals that aren't theirs. Ditch them. Listing agents only. And then make sure that they get paid all 6% of the commission. It's paid by the seller, but make sure they get all of it so that they call you the next time. All right, next question. When your agent presents a deal, how can you be sure it's a decent deal within 5 minutes without knowing all the details and walking the property? Is it because they know exactly what you're looking for? But if they think there's $30,000 in repairs, you can't necessarily trust that until getting a contractor's bid and verifying what's there. So all of this is accurate. First off, the reason I'm able to make a decision within 5 minutes is 2 pieces, really 3 things. The minute an agent sends me a deal, say they email me an address, the minute they do, I pull up my comparable sales software. I run the comparable sales to determine the exact after repaired value, average after repaired value in that neighborhood. So I know what the house is worth. I know what they're asking. Then they give me a ballpark rehab. Let's say it's $30,000. I look at the deal, figure out if it's still got profit, in other words, still capture in the deal. Then, using the same software, I run the comparable rents and find out what the average rent is. And I ensure that I've got $300 or $400 a month net income after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and vacancy. And I generally take $200 to $300 a month out for maintenance and vacancy. Then the third thing, so run your comparable sales to determine the value, run your comparable rents to figure out what it's going to rent for and make sure it cash flows. The third thing is I need 5 days to inspect the property and verify that and you put I think the term is onus on them. Say, look, you told me it was $30,000 rehab. I'll believe you. I'll write an offer right now. But I need 5 days to do my inspections, allowing me to back out of the contract if that $30,000 number is wrong. Because I know my other numbers are right, but I don't know about the $30,000 number. So I write my offer, they get it signed, and they send it back to me. That evening or the next day, I'm at that property with my contractor getting a bid. The next day he gives me the bid. It comes out at $30,000. Boom, deal's done. If it comes out at $40,000, then I go back and resubmit a lower offer. I renegotiate the deal. I can do that during the entire 5 days and not risk losing the deal. So that's how we handle all 3 of those things, and that's why I'm able to write offers literally within 5 minutes. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, or you're welcome to email me at asksteve@getrealwealth.com. This is AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle? You can and should have some real estate in your portfolio. This is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Starting with bad credit and no money at age 27, I began investing in real estate. By 30, I was retired. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Phone lines are open. If you've got a question for me about anything, don't worry about the subject matter we're covering. Anything. You need help locating deals. You need help evaluating. You need help with a tenant. Give me a call, and I'll share with you what I know, what my past experience has taught me, and hopefully be able to help you. It's 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Now, on all the social media platforms, I was going to explain why I'm able to run 20 houses in 10 hours a month or less. And it's actually less. It's actually about 6 hours a month. It takes about 3 hours a month average to run 10 houses. So 20 is 6. And people don't understand that, especially people who have owned rent houses and did it wrong. And in other words, if it takes you longer than that, it's because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the best practices. You haven't taken a class on property management. You don't understand tenant retention. You don't know what you're doing. And that's painful for some people's egos. They don't want to admit they should take a course. They want to trial and error it, and they think they're so smart. It's really kind of a sad situation. It's the old, you don't know what you don't know comment. That's why I talk about forums, and forums are good as a rule. There's sometimes they're bad. That's why I said as a rule. But most forums are pretty good, and you can get good information there. But here's the problem. All you're doing is asking questions and getting answers. The problem is most people don't know what to ask because they don't know what they don't know. And so in their mind, they have 20 questions. And they say, if I get these 20 questions answered, I'll be ready to start investing in real estate. Here's the problem. There's 200 questions you need to ask. You don't know the other 180. You only know those 20. And then you go out there and you try to do this, and you get slaughtered in the marketplace, and you don't understand why, and you run around saying it's real estate's fault, when really it's your fault because you didn't educate yourself. So be very cautious of that. Those of you who are members of forums, I'm a member of Bigger Pockets. I think it's great. But I do understand that a forum does not replace a 2-day class, a week-long boot camp, something like that. You've got to take a course before you risk tens of thousands of dollars in a single-family home, or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in an apartment complex or commercial property. So the reason I'm able to run 20 houses in about 6 hours a month is because I know those best practices. I know the business model, and I've taken course after course after course after course on real estate investing and management. So how do I do it? Well, it starts from day one when I evaluate the property. I ensure that I can lease it at the average for the neighborhood and still make my $300 or $400 a month. What many people do is they go, well, I'm buying it, I'm going to rehab it, it'll be a perfect property. I'm going to see if my numbers work with the highest rent in the neighborhood. Don't do that. Your numbers have to work with the average. The same thing goes for your ARV, your after repaired value. You make sure that you do the average for the neighborhood, not the high. The deal has to work with the average in the neighborhood, and you determine your equity capture with the average. Don't get crazy and go, well, the average is $200,000, but one sold for $220,000. Yeah, I picked up another $20,000 equity. That's a fluke. There was only one of them. Don't do that. Take the average ARV and the average rent and run all your numbers based off of that. The second step to ensure that that my real estate doesn't consume my time is I rehab the property up front. I make it perfect from day one. How do I do that? I use loans called hard money loans that include a loan for the rehab. So the day I close, I'm handing a check to my contractor. Then my contractor goes over there and over the next 2 or 3 weeks completely rehabs the house. New paint, new tile in all the living areas, carpet in the bedrooms, and we replace any system that doesn't have 5 years or more left on its life expectancy. This would be dishwashers, ACs, roofs. If there's a slab problem, I fix that in that time period. And I have a perfect property. What are my maintenance costs going to be? Very, very low, if any. I mean, I've had properties that have gone years without a single maintenance call because of this strategy. You make the house perfect. Then that leads you to the next step. With a perfect house, you can attract, guess what? The perfect tenant. You can attract the perfect tenant. Because if you do what they show you on late night TV, and you go out there and you trade a pickup truck for the down payment to buy a rent house, and the rent house is in poor condition, and you think you're going to do the work yourself to save money, and it takes you 6 months to do what a contractor could have done in 3 weeks, and you do all that stupid stuff, do you think a quality tenant is going to lease from you? No. They're going to look at you and go, man, your house is crap. I need a perfect house. And they're going to go look for a perfect house. And they're going to find me with a perfect house. And guess who they're going to lease from? Me. So having the perfect house not only keeps your maintenance costs down to almost zero for 4 or 5 years, it also allows you to put the perfect tenant in there with a good history of renting, with perfect credit. Well, not perfect credit, but perfect renter's credit, no criminal record. You know, it gives you the power to pick and choose. Because when you have, it takes about 10 days to lease a house in Texas. And I've seen it all over Texas. I'm sure there are small towns that have, I'm talking about major metropolitan areas, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, and the other larger cities. It's a week, 10 days at the most. If it doesn't lease in 7 to 10 days, guess what? You've either got a piece of crap property and you did a horrible rehab on it, or you're overpriced. One of those two things is those are the only two things that are going to keep you from leasing in 7 to 10 days. The next thing that I do is I use a strategy that I don't even know where I read this, but it's one of the most powerful tools I've ever learned. And it is this. I am a jerk when I lease. I am a bear. I'm a jackass when I lease. But once they're in, I'm the nicest, most gracious landlord you'll ever meet. But up front, I beat my tenants to death. I try to talk them out of leasing from me. See, what happens in life is this. If you go out and you're a jerk up front, and then you're nice later, What people will say about you is, man, he seemed like a jerk at first, but boy, he turned out to be a nice guy. Now let's do the reverse. Being nice and saccharine and all sweet up front, and then when something goes wrong, being mean. Guess what they're going to say about you? Oh, he was a liar. He came across really nice, but he turned out to be a jerk. It's the same situation. One of them leads people to say nice things about you. The other one leads people to say you're a liar. So it is always better to be a little rough up front than it is to be super sweet. Some people have said that my personality is a little harsh at first, but that's my specific strategy. I'm always a little, I don't know if aloof is the word, but I'm always a little bit of a jerk up front. And then 2 or 3 sentences later, I'll pay a compliment or say something nice. And like I said, what the people say is, wow, he seemed like a jerk at first, but turned out to be a nice guy. As opposed to, wow, he seemed like a nice guy, but he turned out to be a jerk. That guy's a liar. So I beat the daylights out of my renters. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about how I sign my lease to also ensure that I have no problems. Okay, this is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You can call me at 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65? On the GetRealWealth.com radio show, we study what the 5% who are successful are doing. 70% of them own real estate. Listen and learn how you can use real estate to build wealth and passive income. Listen to the GetRealWealth.com radio show every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. right here on News Radio, AM 1080, KRLD. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Phone lines are open. If you've got a question for me about anything to do with real estate investing, we're talking about property management right now, but you can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about the subject we're covering. It's 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. You're also welcome to email me 24 hours a day. Ask Steve at GetRealWealth.com. Ask Steve at GetRealWealth.com. So let's talk about, now that I've got the perfect property, I've attracted the perfect tenant, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down with them when it's time to sign the lease, and I go over that lease with them line item by line item. And I make them initial in a lot of places that other people don't. The example I'll give you is when I get to the part about rent is due on the 1st, I sit there and I look at them. Again, I'm still being a bit of a jerk. I go, you do understand that rent is due on the 1st and late on the 2nd? The end of your grace period is the 3rd, and my eviction letters go out on the 4th. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. Okay, please initial here. And I make them initial it. And there's multiple points in the lease where I'm that harsh, such as the first $250 of any repair is the responsibility of the tenant. Do you understand that? Yes, I do. Initial here. There's a $50 trip charge for any service that's needed at the house. Do you understand that? Yes. Initial here. Again, being a bit of a bear and beating the people up. Once they've signed the lease and I've collected their first month's rent and the security deposit, in other words, if it's $1,500 rent, then I've picked up $3,000, $1,500 for the security deposit, and $1,500 for the first month's rent. You always prorate the second month. everything changes at that instant. At that instant, I become super nice guy. I begin doing whatever they need to get them into that house and happy. And when they call me with a problem, I'm happy to handle it for them. I'm the nicest guy in the world once they move in, because I don't want what? Turnover. I don't want them leaving. It's called tenant retention. So that's why it only takes me 6 hours a month to run 20 houses. They don't call me because they know if they call me about something stupid like a clogged toilet or a light bulb, it's $50 if they want me to send my guy, plus whatever they're going to charge. They're also responsible for the first $250 of any repairs. So I get very, very few maintenance calls. I can honestly say that I've only had one phone call after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. One. And that was a fire at one of my apartments. And I said, okay, thank you. Is the fire department there? Yes. Have you called the insurance? Yes. Okay, thanks. Going back to bed now. What am I supposed to do? Go there and fight the fire? No. My property managers took care of everything. So, property management, or people who say, man, rental property's difficult, it's tenants, toilets, taxes, it's late night phone calls, I can assure you, they don't know what they're doing. It's not real estate that's the problem. It's their lack of education, their lack of knowledge, their ignorance of the best practices and the way to run rent property. The nice thing about you is you're going to take a course on real estate investing before you start plopping your money into real estate, right? I hope so. Doesn't have to be us, but it's got to be somebody. Do not try to do real estate investing in the trial and error method. One mistake on a single family home, $10,000 gone. One mistake on an apartment complex, $100,000 or $1 million gone. You've got to do it right the first time. So I hope that helps. If you've got a question for me, give me a call, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738. Okay, let's go to some emails and some forum posts and start talking about what people out there are talking about. This was an interesting reach out by a Carlina. It says, what websites are there that will show you properties for sale that are already tenant occupied? So her concept is, it appears her concept is, I want to buy a property that's already got a tenant. I'm going to save time, money, whatever they think that's going to do. But I've got to first answer the question, I don't know where there's a website that's going to allow you to search for properties that have a tenant in them already. The other thing is, you don't know how well the owner screened those tenants. You may, and in my opinion, probably will inherit a loser. I prefer to buy vacant units and screen my own tenants, just like I was describing. This also allows me to rehab the unit and make it perfect to attract the perfect tenant. This also keeps my maintenance costs down to almost nothing. So I don't like buying property with tenants in it. Almost always you're inheriting a dud. You're inheriting a loser. Why do I say that? When people sell their rent properties at 15, 20% below market, is it because they're good operators and they know what they're doing? It's not, is it? They're bad operators and they don't know what they're doing. So what are the odds that that tenant is a good tenant? Pretty low. Pretty low. So there's my sales pitch for why you don't want to buy property that's got a tenant in it. And in many cases, I will ask or require the seller to evict the tenant or get them out before I close. That's probably 98% of the time, 99% of the time. So be very cautious of that. It sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to buy one. It's already got a tenant. I don't have to lease it, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not a good strategy as a rule. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Here's a Reese who says, I'm considering self-managing my first rental, but I'd like to hear your experience managing your own. How often are you actually at the property? My biggest concern is physically having to go to the property on a frequent basis. I live 40 minutes from the market I'm looking at. Well, this one's really a question I've already covered on today's show. You've got to do what I described in the first two segments, and that is rehab the property up front, make everything perfect, attract the perfect tenant, or you are going to be going to see the property on a regular basis. If you cheap out your rehab, if you don't solve every problem up front, that problem is going to come back and bite your butt. You don't want that. Because every time you have to go deal with a property, that's time away from your family, romancing your wife, away from fitness, away from whatever. So self-management is great on single family for most people. There are exceptions where they should use a property manager, but in most cases, I prefer that people run their own single family houses. And if you follow what I shared with you in the first two segments, Reese, you won't have those instances where you have to drive to the property over and over again. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738. Let's go to Hal, who's calling on his cell phone. Hal, thanks a lot for calling in. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Excellent. How can I help?
Yeah, I just got a question on, what would be the quickest way you could pay your house off?
Are you talking about your personal residence or your rent house?
No, personal residence. If you answer those kind of questions.
Well, the first thing you've got to understand, Hal, I don't believe in paying off your house. That's dead equity. It's not a good deal to pay off your home because that home is worth it's a couple $100,000. That couple $100,000 should be somewhere invested, making you money, not just sitting there in a house. So from an investor's point of view, and that's what this show is for, Hal, we do not pay off our homes.
Well, that's the first time I heard that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's considered dead equity. Now, Hal, if you don't know, think about it this way, Hal. You're going to pay about 4% interest on the loan on your house. If you know how to make 20% rate of return, do you see why we go ahead and refinance the house? We're paying 4% there, but we're making 20% over here. We're netting 16%. That's good cash flow, and we're building wealth for ourselves and our family, as opposed to it just sitting in the house.
Right.
Any other questions?
No, that'd be it. Hey, man, I appreciate the show. I always listen to it. This is my first time calling in.
All right. Well, I appreciate the phone call. I really do. It's more fun to answer phone calls than anything. So thanks a lot, Hal. You take care. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. This is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. You can, of course, find us online at GetRealWealth.com. While you're there, if you're interested in learning how the mentoring works at Real Wealth Academy, click on the free workshop. I'm actually teaching one tonight from 6:30 to 8:30 if you would like to meet me. Go to GetRealWealth.com. Check out the free workshop. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65 and 36% are dead? The good news is that here at the GetRealWealth.com radio show, we know what the other 5% are doing. 70% of them own real estate. We are a mentoring group for new and experienced real estate investors. We will show you how to build a second stream of income that will allow you to retire at any age. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, please go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Hello, Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. We are in the final segment of today's show, so if you've got a question for me, you need to call me right now. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, or you're welcome to email me at asksteve@getrealwealth.com. asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Now, somebody emailed me saying they're going to be at the event this evening. I appreciate the email, but you do need a reservation. So make sure you go to getrealwealth.com and click on the free workshop and reserve a seat for you and your spouse or whoever is coming. That's getrealwealth.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click free workshop. I want to share something. My CPA just sent me something about retirement expenses. And the reason he sent this to me is because multiple times I've talked about how people think that they're going to retire by saving up money. And the problem with that strategy is, even if you save up $1 million and you retire, what are you praying? That you die before you run out of money. So he sends me this thing. The other one that is part of this, I just realized, is the point that a lot of people around 50, their kids are graduating college, they're empty nesters, and they think their expenses are going to be lower from that point forward. But they forget about healthcare costs. See, it doesn't get better after the kids move out. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but here it comes. It gets worse. Listen to this. The average healthy 65-year-old couple today is expected to spend $388,000 on health care throughout their retirement. Let me read that horrible number again. $388,000 on health care throughout their retirement. So that $1 million is now what? $600,000 if you saved up $1 million, which is so hard to do. People are delusional. They never do the math. You have to save $50,000 a year for 20 years. That's after paying taxes, car notes, house notes, food, electricity. You have to have $50,000 savable a year for 20 years to save up $1 million. It's just not happening. And then, boom, you have, I think it's just a lie. It's a delusional lie that people think their expenses are going to be lower as they get older. It doesn't even make sense, because you know your what? Your healthcare expenses are going to go up to a whopping $388,000 in retirement on average. And that's a healthy 65-year-old couple. Good Lord, if you've got a condition, it's obviously going to be way, way, way more than that. So I appreciate it. Just think about that, and why it explains why I keep preaching build passive income that comes in, whether you live 10 years in retirement or 40 years in retirement. It comes in every single month. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. This next question, it says, is from, I'm not sure, it's a person named India. And it says, how do you get private financing if you've never done a deal before? As a beginner, is it possible to get private financing? Or would it be better to use a bank to finance a home and the rehab to do a flip? Well, my personal opinion is I prefer a mortgage company to private money. I use hard money loans to purchase, since the loan includes the rehab and closing costs. I move to a 30-year fixed Fannie Mae as soon as the rehab is complete, which is, like I said, is 2 to 3 weeks. If you use private money, remember that they are probably more sophisticated than you, and you can get taken advantage of very easily. On your first deal, pay to have an attorney walk you through it if you're using private money. So am I saying never to use private money? I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying they may be more sophisticated, they may be smarter than you, and it's easy to get taken advantage of. That's why if you do private money, the first time you do it, you make sure you've got an attorney watching you and making sure that you're doing it safely. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, or email me at asksteve@getrealwealth.com, asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Okay, let's look at this next one. This is from David. It says, I've been working with a realtor who has had a deal on the MLS for close to 100 days, so I decided to do a walkthrough with her, and I submitted an offer that she presented to her seller, and it looks like he's going to take it. What do I need to do to get the property under an assignable contract since it's on the MLS? This is easy, David. There's a box in the earnest money contract that you check that gives you permission to assign your rights to other people. So make sure that box is checked. If this is your first deal, it is imperative that you have an attorney walk you through that contract, because it's your first time, so that you understand every paragraph and what it means. You only have to do this once, but do it. Go through that contract, make sure that box is checked. The other way to protect yourself, David, is always sign it, David, your last name, and or assigns. Not sign it, I'm sorry. Under the buyer's name should be David and or assigns. David and or assigns. That's actually who the buyer is. And of course, use your last name. So those two things will allow you to assign any earnest money contract. Then all you need is an assignment contract to sign with whoever buys it from you. And that's usually a one-page, that's only about half a page document. Okay. First property. Next question is from Paul. First property, condo with HOA fees. Yeah. It's very difficult, Paul, to get condos to cash flow unless you buy them at deeply, deeply discounted prices. And the reason is what you're bringing up here, the HOA. When you have a $330 or, $235, sorry. A $235 a month and taxes are $216, you're not going to make much cash flow, about $100 a month on this deal. I don't think that's a good deal at all. Plus, condos are harder to lease. It's a different type of person who leases a condo. In this price range, they're going to be a little harder to manage. Paul, I'm telling you, this is not a good deal at all. It looks like you're paying full price for the property, too. So, yeah, I'm not liking this at all, Paul. You're paying full price for the property. Your $100 a month cash flow doesn't even include maintenance and vacancy. This is going to be negative cash flow, Paul. By the time you pay vacancy, by the time you have any maintenance, you're going to be negative cash flow. This is not a good deal. Keep your head up, keep looking, keep listening to the show, and make sure that you are doing deals like we describe on this show that actually benefit you and are positive cash flow and have equity capture. This has no equity capture and no cash flow. There is no reason on earth to buy this other than speculative, meaning you're a gambler. You're going to buy it at full price and wait for it to go up in value 20 years from now. If you want to do that, you're not listening to the right show. You need to go listen to a gambling show, because that's not what we do. Okay. Next question is how to invest $20,000 in real estate for the first time. This is from a Sebastian. He says, I would like to hear from some experienced people. Well, there's enough there, Sebastian, for you to get your first rent house. As I've said, The last 20 rent houses I bought were about $18,000 total out of pocket. That's closing costs, down payment, everything, about $18,000. But there's something you've got to do first, and I misanswered this 2 days ago. I'm going to answer it correctly this time. Invest a couple grand in yourself. Take an investor course. Learn the best practices, learn the business model, and then take the rest of your money, the $18,000, and get your first rent property. And you say, well, that's my last $18,000. Then wholesale a few deals or flip a deal to get more investable capital. But I definitely agree with taking, if you've got money in the bank, the first thing you should do is buy a rent property. When you run out of money, go wholesale or flip to generate more down payments to buy more rent property. It's such a simple business model. Very simple, very effective. Oh, we're at the end of the show. All right, this has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I will see those of you that are coming to the event this evening at 6:30, and we will be done and out of there by 8:30. If you're not registered for that event, go to GetRealWealth.com, upper right-hand corner, click free workshop, and you can register there. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
GetRealWealth.com radio show. Please remember that this show is for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investing advice. Always get a professional opinion before making any investment decision. To find out about the mentoring and consulting at Real Wealth Academy, visit GetRealWealth.com and attend one of our free introductory workshops on real estate investing. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.